Okay,
We
I
see the
understand what you're
results.
saying. That makes sense. You know what? I agree with you. We can be
Good.
friends.
Good. Deport them. Thank you. I'm glad you agree.
We can deport them.
You were
Sorry, I
saying
was just bad mouthing you to be funny, but I just wanted to see how you would react.
no.
But
It's so you
it,
think ICE? Were you being serious? You think ICE is immoral?
well, no, I don't think ICE is immoral. I think that the idea of just sending people away without due process is immoral.
Can you define what due process would be for someone in this country illegally?
Well, I would define due process as giving people proper court dates and actually not like having ICE be outside the court areas and like rounding people up, like spawn camping them, so to speak.
So,
And
would it be illegal? Would it be illegal? Let's say someone that has a warrant out for murder has a court date for a traffic ticket, and
a traffic ticket is like unrealistic. You get traffic
why not?
tickets all the time.
But
I mean,
people hear
people
me
get
out.
them all the time.
But
That's
hear me
not
out.
like felony.
But hear me out, right? Of course, it's not a felony. Let's say there's a person. Follow with me here, okay? Let me know if you're following me. There's a
Yeah.
person that's wanted for murder, and authorities can't find them. This happens, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now let's say that there's a report that the enforcement or that the law enforcement looking for this person hears. This person actually has a court hearing today to fight a traffic ticket in a court in Los Angeles.
Well, but
Would it be, let me finish, would it be
Yeah,
immoral spawn camping for law enforcement to show up outside that court and arrest him for the murder charge?
for the murder charge? It would not be immoral, but
Okay.
not for a parking ticket or rounding up the people like that. And it's just I don't think like I now I don't know if that's like what's actually happening here, but I do have a problem with people like not reporting like the facts accurately, clearly.
But again, look, okay, fair enough. But let's take it one step at a time. It seemed to be that you had uniquely a problem with people that are illegal, that perhaps have deportation orders, etc., being
that are
picked up,
yeah.
picked up outside of court hearings that they have. That seemed to be what you had a problem, but you just got.
Not just that.
But you just okay. Real quick.
No, hold
Let's please. Let's take it one step at a time, because what's going to happen, I feel like what happens in most of these conversations is you'll be like, well, this is something that I take umbrage with. And I'll be like, but really is it? And you're like, I want to move on to something completely different. So let's just nip this in the bud. And then you could say, yeah, actually, I don't have a problem with that. You've already said when it comes to people that are accused of crimes, you don't have a problem with waiting outside a courthouse for another crime in order to pick them up. So you're saying now, you know what? If there's a lawful deportation order and ICE is waiting for them outside of a court to deport them, you don't have a problem with that? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I have a problem with it if there's a level of like morality here, okay? Like you can't just deport somebody for a traffic ticket, but you can deport somebody for murder or high crimes and misdemeanors.
So then the claim is it's not that you take it's not that you're upset with them waiting outside of courthouses, it's that you don't want people deported for the reasons that they're being deported.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's a separate argument. Happy to talk about. I just wanted to get out because it seemed like your first argument was there's something immoral or possibly illegal about waiting outside courthouses to get people. So now that we've said that, okay, that's not the issue. The issue is you think that people that are here illegally should not be deported if they haven't committed a serious crime. Is that a fair characterization?
I think that it's in the United States' best interest, realistically, to actually give amnesty to people who aren't like criminals. And the reason for it is I think it's far more costly for the United States to mass deport all these people who some of them aren't even given proper process.
Okay, we'll get back to the due process argument.
But
let me ask you this, though. But let's stick on this argument. So your argument is that you want to give amnesty to every illegal who hasn't committed a serious crime. Is that a fair characterization?
Well, yeah.
Okay, and what if that's 20 million? You're still good with that? If there's 20 million of the people in that group?
Well, sure, and I'll tell you why. Because those people contribute to the economy by buying and selling and working. It's
okay. What about fair enough? What about the ones that don't work? What about the ones that cost us more than they put in. So if I could find an illegal who hasn't committed a serious crime, but they get some form of benefits that take more out of our taxation than they put in, you would be for deporting them?
But that's a state issue. And the thing is that...
Wait. How's that a state issue? Like, who's allowed in the country illegally is a federal issue, not a state issue.
Well, no, but what you're saying is with benefits like that,
it doesn't matter. If your argument is the reason that we shouldn't deport people is because they pay more into the system than they take out, and I say fair enough. But what about those that take more out than they put in? Should we deport them?
What I'm trying to explain to you is the access to those benefits, like, are through things like driver's licenses, right? And like,
well, there's all kinds of issues. It doesn't matter.
If you really specific to limit the access of those people to have benefits like that, then why don't you make it harder for, like, you know, in that sense, make it harder for them to get benefits?
Okay, that's a separate question than what you suggested. It seemed that you were saying that your principle why it's okay to give amnesty to people that broke the law is because they are of net benefit. They pay more in than they take out, correct? That's what you said.
But they are.
Okay, but not all of them. There are certainly, even if it's only...
Have to be.
Well, but, okay, then those that aren't. You concede there are those that take more out than they put in? You'll concede that?
If there are people that do that, there are American citizens that do that too.
Okay, that's irrelevant to the question.
But
you're saying, but listen... So for those, we're just trying to get a baseline of where the argumentation can move forward from. So it seemed to say, I think illegals should be given amnesty because they are beneficial. They pay more in than they take out. I say, okay. So then the ones that don't, the illegals that take more out than they put in, you would be for deporting them. And your answer is?
No.
Of course.
And the reason for that is it's a more complicated issue than that. You can't just mass deport people who have, like, cancer or are medically unable. It would be unethical.
Now, what you've done is, and this is oftentimes what happen, just be honest, you're happy with these illegals being here and want them to stay. You couch it in, and the reason I say that's because they're beneficial, but that's not true. You would say that even if they aren't beneficial, as you've just admitted here.
Well, would you be happy tearing apart people's families?
Yes, people that... Okay, do you think if someone commits some sort of crime, should they be thrown in jail if they have a family?
Well, hold on a minute there.
Let's say I have a previous marriage and I have a child to a previous marriage and I owe back child support and I never pay it. Should I be taken to jail for non-payment of child support even though I have a current family now?
That's a completely separate issue.
No, it's not, because if you say yes, then you are breaking apart my family. Why? Why would you break apart the family?
We're talking about this is semantics here.
It's not semantics. It's quite the opposite. It's discussing the moral principle behind this. The truth is, anytime we arrest anyone and put them in jail or custody of some sort of way, we are, quote, breaking up a family. But you would never suggest that when it comes to people breaking laws that you don't like, that we shouldn't punish those people because it would, quote, break up families. Well, you've already admitted that you want the illegals. So of course you're going to say that about this issue. But we've already accepted as a society that it's perfectly reasonable to break up families if there are laws that are broken.
I'll concede that certain points of our system for immigration are broken, but I don't think, like, the entry points that we have aren't as good. Like, people can come in on the visa and stay, and that's, like, an issue that is, like,
but I feel like that's, again, I don't mind taking this conversation other place, perfectly reasonable, but that seems to be much different than where we were just talking, right? Well, there are parts of our immigration system that are broken. I agree. There are parts of it that I don't like. In fact, there's a lot of it I don't like, probably in the opposite direction of you. But nonetheless, the idea of Well, I'm somehow, it's unethical for me, it seemed to be what you're implying, to want to deport people, including those that are a net drain on the system,
Well,
because that would
fine
be,
that
let me,
drain.
real quick, because you just conceded that even those that take more out of the system that put in, you would want to stay. And your rationale seemed to be, would I suggest deporting them and, quote, tearing apart families? Yes. Just like you would suggest putting someone in jail for non-payment of child support, even though that would tear up a family.
Why? I don't. Well, you were the one who suggested that.
Okay,
But
so you
what
wouldn't.
I'm trying to get back on topic here. But I'm trying
That
to.
is the topic.
No,
That is
what I'm
the
trying to
specific
explain to
topic
you
is let's now wait, let's go through the chain of argument how we got here, right?
Well, no,
You
I'm
seem to
explain
suggest
to
the reason that we have to give amnesty to immigrants is they pay more in than they take out. I said okay, but not all of them. You're like, I agree, not all of them. I said okay, the ones
Well,
that
yeah,
don't.
but
Let me finish.
you're
I
not
said the
letting me
let me
finish.
finish.
You're
I
just
said the
continuing
ones
to
let me finish, please,
be a
and then
pain.
you'll have your chance to talk. I said the ones that don't, then should we deport them? You said no, they too should be allowed to stay. I said, therefore your rationale isn't that we should keep these people because they're beneficial. Your rationale is we should keep them regardless because of some other principle. To which you retorted, but do you want to break up families? I said, yes. Just like you want to break up, let me finish, please. Just like you want to break up families, if you want people arrested for crimes that you believe that they should be legitimately arrested for. And you said, that's off topic, that's semantic. That's not on topic, that is directly addressing your points that you're making.
There are way more, like, this is a much more complicated issue than just that. You can't just bring it down to, like, that.
You did it.
No.
Yes, you distilled a complicated issue down to, but if you deport people for breaking the law, that will break up families. Right, you could make that argument about incarcerating anyone for any crime ever. That doesn't seem to be a good argument, is what I'm suggesting. So what I'm saying is, that's a bad argument, try again.
All right. Well, look, if you really don't think that people are, like, I don't know how to talk to you, but you're just...
I don't know. Let me put it this way. If you think that we have somehow a moral obligation to allow illegals in this country and give them amnesty, even if they take more out of our system than they put in, that's sort of your argument, right?
No, it isn't. Because they do put more in.
No, that's not true. We're talking about, listen, we're right now only talking about the subset of illegals, which you agree exist, that take out more than they put in.
But that's a smaller subset than...
Let's say that's true. Let's say that's only 5 illegals in the entire country. Nonetheless, you said they should be allowed to stay.
Yes. If 100, hold on. If 100 illegals, like, all right, if 100 illegals come in and they do a lot of work and 5 illegals don't do a lot of work, if out of that percentage, like, let's just give you that number, then if it's just 5%, then, or whatever, then, and you're just gonna start looking up numbers or whatever. I don't give a fuck. But
what? Wait a minute. Let's take your example. Let's say.
Hold on. I'm not done finished. I'm not done talking.
Okay.
Yeah, you can fucking talk all you like, but I can't. So the way you're talking about it is like you're just trying to say that there are way more, like, people that are coming in that are doing a lot of work here, and you're shitting on them, and it's disrespectful. And then people coming, like, the very few people that do drain off the system, it's minuscule compared to the people that are here.
Let's say that's
standing there spewing out your hate, and to all your little fans. It's sickening.
Some of them are big. Some of them are big.
Well,
fans.
Yeah, they are pretty fucking big.
Yeah,
but
I like how. Let me ask you this: are you trans?
Well, that's irrelevant to your question.
I just am curious. I know the answer, though. I can tell. Because you're talking about feelings a lot.
Ask that question because you're a piece of fucking shit.
Is that it?
No.
Well, maybe before
And
I
let me
asked that
ask you
question,
something.
when you said about how evil I'm being and how my fans and this, that, and the other, you're the one who started with ad hom attacks before me, and I still haven't made an attack. I just asked if you were trans and said you seem to be focused on emotional. That's why I brought it up. So
Well,
again,
I
you could
think
go with the insults. Now let's go to your example that you gave here. Let's say that what you seem to suggest there, it took you a while to get it out, but it seemed that you suggest this. It's unfair to point out that there are a small number, in your estimation, for the sake of argument, we'll concede this for now, there are a small number of illegals that actually take more out than they put in. And so therefore, to focus on them is somehow being hateful to the illegals that are actually putting more in than they're taking out. Let's assume that you're right. Hell, let's go and say for every 100 illegals that are actually working hard and putting more in taxes than they're taking out, there are 5. So for every 5 ones that take more out, there are 100 that are good. Why can't I say keep the 100 that are good and boot out the 5 that are taking more out? Why can't I say that? How is that bad to the 100 that are good? Do you have a response? Are you still there?
Oh, sorry, I hit my mic a little bit.
Okay.
It was like
It's fair. No problem.
But I was just like trying to explain that if you get rid of the 105, I mean if you get rid of like all of them, right? Or like the 5, the extra
Correct.
5, right?
Correct.
You lose the chance for them to eventually, because they have a chance to eventually grow, and you don't know, like, the government. Do you really trust the government? Like, you're the kind of person that trusts. Do you trust the government that they'll take your guns away? Do you think they'll take your guns away? Well,
I think there are certainly people that advocate restricting our gun rights, of course.
well, do you really think that those same people, and or like, someone else will eventually try and like that 5%, right? Are you really going to try and like say that they're like, if
you're making a practical, let me see if I'm going to try to,
if you attack the 5%, right, out of the 100, like, you're attacking the rest. You have to give everybody an equal chance.
You're like all over the place, right? So it seems that you're making 2 separate arguments here. One is, even if these people are taking more out of the system than they're putting in right now, they could theoretically in the future be better, so we should give them a chance. And secondly, that as a practical application, even if we authorize the government to only deport the ones that are taking more out than they're putting in, we don't trust that the government would be able to do that effectively. Is that fair enough? That's the 2 arguments you're making?
That's my 2 arguments.
Okay, let's start with the second argument first. It doesn't matter what the practical application would be for the sense of discussing the moralness, which is what you said. Your claim wasn't a legal claim, it was a moral claim. And your moral defense for why we should allow illegal immigrants to stay and give them amnesty is because they are beneficial to our system. So whether or not it could practically be applied, we're talking in a moral sense. Should these people be taken home? Even if we would say that, let me finish, even if we would say that the government could make mistakes, well, we accept that with anything that we have the government do, including any laws. Would you acknowledge that, since you seem to have a healthy distrust of the government, that you were against the prosecution or incarceration of any January 6 people because they could have made mistakes? Of course not. My guess is that you were gung-ho. Go ahead.
I was against a little bit of that.
That's amazing. Please go.
Well, I think that there were some people that were peaceful, I'm sure, but I don't think that all of them were. Like, some of the people that were like, there was an officer that was killed.
No, there wasn't. There wasn't.
Yeah, there was.
No, that's not true. Who was this officer that was killed by January 6 people?
Ryan
Sicknick?
It was.
Officer Brian Sicknick died of a stroke after this event that was not connected to the event. They looked at footage. They did tests on his body and did not find that anything that occurred on January 6th was responsible for him passing away of a stroke the following day. So no, that's not true. The only the only person that was killed that day was actually a Trump supporter named Ashley Babbitt that was shot and killed. There was no officers that were killed by anyone there January 6th.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just functionally, nonetheless, the point I'm trying to make is you wouldn't have suggested of not arresting any January 6 people because sometimes the government makes mistakes. You would say, well, of course, government could always make mistakes, but still, we say that the government should enforce the laws that are on the book. That's all I'm suggesting with illegal immigration. And you've yet to provide a defense other than point one that you made, which I'll get to in a second. So we acknowledge that it's sort of a poor argument to say, well, the government might not be able to find who these 5% that are taking more out than they're putting in is. That's not really a good argument. Let's assume hypothetically that they were able to find that group. Okay, should they be removed now?
Well, I think it would depend on it would depend on the circumstance.
Well, you already gave the argument for why no, right? You said no because they could become good in the future, right?
Well, yeah. Well, if they're good in the future, like if they're futurely employable, yeah.
Okay, let's real quick. I promise we'll get to that group. Let's assume they're not. Should they be deported? For whatever reason, they're not employable in the future. They're net trained. They're not going to get a job. We know that. Whatever. Maybe they have some sort of illness. Maybe they've just acknowledged, I refuse to ever get a job. Whatever it may be. Should that person be deported?
Well, do they have money?
No, because in this example, they're taking more out through benefits than they're putting in.
Well, that's a difficult question because the issue is that sometimes, our medical system is a joke, and I guess.
Well, think about it this, it seems to be what you're suggesting is, well, maybe they're taking more out because our medical system's so poor, so through no fault of their own, they have to pay a lot for medical expenses, and they end up getting some sort of, Medicaid or something like that. They're getting some sort of benefit. But that doesn't really help you, because again, that's still, regardless of what you think of the medical system, that's them taking more out in taxpayer money than they're putting in. So even if it's for a medical issue or whatever, would you say that person should not be deported? You've already said yes. You don't think they should be deported? Okay.
If they're too much of a net drain. But, I do think that certain criminals, like dangerous criminals, should be deported. And I agree with that sentiment. It's just...
Are you hitting your mic? Is that what's going on?
See what?
Are you hitting your mic? I hear like a thud.
Tip-tap. I'm tapping my mic to make sure it works.
Oh, it's working. You don't have to keep tapping it. Because it's affecting how much we could hear you, though. That's all I'm saying. Sorry. It's all right. But okay, so let's go with this. So part of your rationale here is, well, because they could do good things in the future. Okay, given that, do you suggest we should have open borders then? Anyone who wants to come should be allowed, even if they're net trained, because hypothetically in the future, they might be beneficial?
Well, I would suggest restricting our, all these benefits. People having more restricted benefits just to citizens, if that were the case. I mean, if instead of having open borders, restrict benefits simply to citizens.
Believe it or not, this is actually an argument that libertarians make. So this is sort of Milton Friedman's argument. Milton Friedman basically says there should be no welfare system. None. No WIC, no Medicare, no Medicaid. None of that shit. No Social Security, none of it. But we should allow anyone who wants to come in and is willing to work for a living to come here. That's what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I'd suggest something like that, yes. But with welfare for citizens that are already here, who've been here 30 years plus, maybe. Or either born here or who have been here for their entire lives.
So you're suggesting that you are eligible for those benefits if you were born here?
Yes. If you were born here, birthright citizenship.
So then you're still okay with the welfare system if you were born here?
Well, yeah, because I think that there should be a birthright system.
Okay, that's not workable though, because the reason for this, what you've done is disincentivize people to work. Then, because people now could have a welfare system to stay home, then you need people to work, so you import people, right?
But
And that's what's going on. The only way this works is if you completely get rid of, or almost you strictly limit the welfare system to say, no, 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 we'll keep the welfare system as it is for people that were born in the country. Look, I agree with you at least on this. We should do more to limit how much immigrants get of this welfare system. That I agree with you. But let's say this is a discussion for another time, because would you agree with this? That ain't happening anytime near in our
yeah,
political
and
system.
that's a problem. But I
Okay.
do think that the issue with you're never gonna get like someone to vote for like people to get less Social Security and whatnot.
Okay.
That's a big thing. Nobody's ever gonna really vote
So
for that.
given that we accept that, now we're back to square one. So should we have open borders?
Well, I mean, we really can't. I
Well,
mean,
we did. We basically did under Biden. I mean, it wasn't open borders in that there technically was a border, but they were leaving tens of millions of people in illegally.
well, I mean, he was deporting a lot of people too.
It's not true. The numbers, it is the most striking number of people that were allowed in this country in history.
No,
It was an actual
I don't know, it was
crisis.
like a catch and release thing. I think that was that what he was doing. I don't really like know
Uh,
about it, but what was the story?
Catch and release.
I
Like
don't remember.
they call turnaways at the border. They would consider those to be something that we counted as a deportation, although that was clearly not the case.
Yeah.
So no, the point is the number. I could bring up the numbers if you want,
Sure.
but it's I mean it's out of
Yeah,
control.
sure, that's fine.
It's out of control. The amount of people that was coming across illegally. I mean,
But I
so
do think the numbers are unsustainable, and it is a big issue. But I
okay. Well then, but then again, see, this is I don't
But you
disagree
have
with you there. You're saying things that are reasonable. Yes, we should limit these immigrants, the amount of sort of welfare systems they get. I agree with that. You're like, yes, the numbers aren't sustainable. I agree with that.
But
The
doesn't it
problem is,
really-
let me finish real quick. Like
Yeah.
the problem is your frustration against deporting people was from a moral perspective. And
Yeah.
so if you're saying it's immoral for someone that came in under Joe Biden 2 years ago for me to say, hey man, you got to go, how are you equally immoral for telling someone who's trying to get in right now, hey, sorry, you can't come in? Same sort of argument, right? So why am I immoral for wanting to deport this person, but you're not immoral for telling the current person trying to get in, no, you can't come in?
Well, I don't think that it's immoral to tell people not to come in. I think that we can tell people not to come in, but because that's what we should be able to tell people that they can't come in. We have that power.
So just to be clear, we have a law that says if you that you have to come in this way, and if you don't, it's illegal. But if people sneak in, then you say, well, now it's immoral for us to tell them, sorry, you broke the law, you have to go home. Incidentally, here's the numbers for you, if you could see that.
Oh yeah.
So you see, Biden's only there for 4 years. We had 10.4 million people that came in under him. You see, Bush, you had 9.8 million, but that was under 8 years. Obama had 8. Trump only had 3 in his first term. Now, do you see the red here under Biden that's like through the roof?
Sure.
Compare that to Obama, that it's almost all blue. Because the light blue is lawful permanent residents, and those apply to be permanent residents. These would be someone that's like, you're an immigrant that's coming from a country like, wherever, Iraq, Syria, Japan, wherever, and you apply and get
I
a green
guess you could
card.
say it's really Jover.
What?
I guess
Okay.
you could say Jover.
Okay.
Biden.
Yeah. Okay. Then you have INA, non-immigrants. These are people that are specifically for like H-1B visas, except work visas, student visas. Other foreign nationals are basically illegals. See the amount of illegals under Biden?
That's a lot.
Yes, not even close. So why, for example, if you see that chart, so let's say the huge amount of illegals that came in there in 2024, now it's 2025, they broke the law, they came in. Why is it immoral for me to say, you got to go home?
Wait, are you saying that they came in like between those specific years?
Yes, that chart right there shows the amount that were coming in each year. So, for example, if we just limit our discussion to illegals that came in here in 2024 and say, okay, you came here last year, you broke the law. You're saying it would have been absolutely moral to put security up at the border and say, you can't come in. But if they broke the law and snuck in last year, to now say, okay, you have to go home, you broke the law. You're saying that's somehow immoral. Why? What's the principle that makes what you're suggesting moral and what I'm suggesting immoral?
I think that there should be a cutoff at some point for certain people, for like, at some point, there has to be a cutoff because, like, we can't, at some point, like maybe during, like, can you put up the chart?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, like, realistically, we would have to create some kind of chart, like, we already have a chart. But wouldn't you say that like it'd be a good idea just to like, I don't know, like make a line, a red line, like hold on, right before the Trump administration, like, and then say like that those guys on the left side get amnesty, the ones on the right.
No, because the problem is what you've done is then incentivize people to keep crossing into the border illegally because they'll say, and this is what happened. We already tried this under Reagan, right? So there was amnesty that was put forth by Reagan and his administration. And what the Republicans and Reagan gave up was, look, we'll give up amnesty. And what they got in return was a secure border. And guess what happened? Well, they gave everyone amnesty, and then the border wasn't secure, and we just saw people flooding in over and over and over again. And that was exactly what will happen from this point forward. As long as we say, well, okay, those of you that broke the law and came in illegally, we'll say that you're allowed to stay, but no more. What'll happen is the Democrats will continue to push every time they're in positions of authority to say, yep, let them in, let them in. And then when a Republican gets back in office, the Republican, if they ever have the balls, most of them won't, but if they do have the balls, someone like Trump to say, okay, man, you got to go home. People like you will say, leave these ones stay. And we promise we won't let any more in. And it's just a cycle that'll keep repeating over and over again.
Okay.
We see the results.
That makes sense. You know what? I agree with you. We can
Good. Deport them. Thank you. I'm glad you agree.
We can deport them.
Okay. Now we're talking. Now we're moving in a positive direction.